Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. COVID has been responsible for various paradoxical situations. On the one side, the economy of the countries is tanking. On the other side, the stock markets are booming. Whether it's Sensex, whether it's Nasdaq, the stock markets are not falling. And curiously, on the one side, people are not getting jobs, and yet the world's consumer today are sitting on piles of cash. $3 trillion is a surplus cash available to the people today. How will the people spend it? And the households look set to provide the economic recovery, especially in the countries like America, India, and others. They have a lot of cash lying with them, and that cash can be the catalyst for economic recovery provided it is utilized properly. The most important thing is that this anomalous situation where unemployment is increasing, but the stock markets are shooting through the door, creates a situation when the people hold on to cash in the hope that it's going to have more power in the future. The economic controls, if you remember, implemented due to the Second World War, makes today's lockdowns, including restrictions on the restaurants and the football stadiums, look very relaxed. People are crying, I know it. Most people are crying, why the lockdowns? They have forgotten what happened during the Second World War and after the Second World War. At that time, the rationing was the common thing. I remember in India, everything used to be rationed. Whether you want sugar, you want rice, you want kerosene, anything. It was rationed fully, and a ration card used to be the prime document. Nobody bothered about the Aadhaar cards. Nobody bothered about the passports even. But the ration card was the in thing. And in America, similarly, the government rationed everything from coffee to the shoes and forbade the production of fridges and the bicycles. In 1943, the entire automobile industry sold only 139 cars. 2 years later, the war ended and the consumer led boom ensued. America put to use the personal savings that accumulated in the wartime. The same thing is happening today. As I said, whether in India, where the people are unemployed, the migrant labor has gone back to their homes. They are no longer getting the full salaries. But there are two things which are emerging. One is there are aid schemes by the Modi government which give you money not for working. Aid scheme. So people have come to realize that why work at all? You're getting more money sitting at home doing nothing. And in some cases, it has emerged that the husband and wife have legally separated, but they're living together. And legally separated because then both are entitled to different payouts. This is the anomaly of Indian government, which exists basically on contradictions. It's a conservative government, but it is more welfare oriented than the most welfare governments of the world, most such government of the world. But then that's a subject. The first thing is this cash, which is coming to the people, how they are going to use it. I was talking of USA, where in 1943 they sold only 139 cars. But by 1950, 7 years, they were producing more than 8 million vehicles per year. Governments today, USA, Canada, Australia, India, European countries, are very slow in easing lockdowns as vaccines are reducing hospitalization. The same news coming from India, for example, that there are no hospital beds available, but now immediately hospital beds are available. There was no oxygen, and the threat of the oxygen audit made Delhi surplus with oxygen, and they are willing to give it to other states. So it was all a show. But anyway, now what is happening is that when the lockdowns ease and the deaths ease, the attention would be in the shape of economic recovery. The big question is whether or not the rich world can repeat the post war trick with pent up savings powering a rapid bounce back. This $3 trillion sitting with the middle class, especially more than 70% of this 3 trillion is with the middle classes. And if they invest immediately, whether in the stock, whether in the shares, or whether setting up their own ventures, this would spark the recovery. The households have accumulated a lot. Economists' data on personal savings, the difference between post income tax and the consumer spending for the rich countries shows this figure of $3 trillion. Had this pandemic not happened, households would probably have stashed away $3 trillion the first 9 months last year. In fact, they saved 6 trillion. This implies excess saving of $3 trillion, and that's 1/10 of the annual spending of these 21 countries. These are G20 countries plus one. That is still not a member of G7, but then that's one of the richest countries of the world. So households in many places have built huge cash piles. In America, excess saving may soon exceed 10% of GDP. And that is, as I said, because of President Biden's 1.9 trillion stimulus plan. The same is true in India, where the aid schemes are enabling savings to be more than GDP. In Canada, for example, says saving is 60% of the GDP. Britain, Italy, Germany, name it. And the household don't really use these savings, not in a matter of economics. They keep it as ready cash for the rainy day. That's the issue with the middle classes always. They want to be sure that when the problem comes, they have the cash ready. For one thing, their income usually fall. The pay is cut, they lose their job, but they have to keep up the appearances. The governments in the rich world have spent 5% of combined GDP on unemployment benefits, stimulus checks, welfares. As a result, household incomes have risen in the past year. At the same time, the lockdowns have reduced the opportunity to spend, where people used to go for shopping sprees. They used to go for tours and vacations. All that is over. So all the avenues for spending were closed down. So the cash kept accumulating. Now, what will you do with this cash? If they were to spend it all in one go, the world GDP growth will exceed 10%. And the figure is so heady, it could put on post war recovery to shame. Maybe next couple of months, and then COVID would be a normal disease, like flu, like bad cold. So the recovery would start. And it will also generate a surge in inflation. As a matter of fact, this has happened in India. The figures that came last Monday, that the wholesale inflation index has increased by 10%. And if wholesale index increases by 10%, the retail one would definitely not be less than 20%. So the reality is somewhere between what JP Morgan suggests, that many rich countries, the consumption will soon rebound to pre-pandemic level. And when the demand for the product is more, all the industry would like to cater to that demand. There'll be more expenditure on advertisement, marketing, and products. Goldman Sachs reckons that in America, the spending of excess saving will add 2% to GDP growth. And if you remember, I had posted on Facebook that IMF had forecast that India would have, for example, a GDP growth of more than 11%. Now, imagine in a situation where unemployment is increasing, and that you are having a GDP growth of 10% and 11% and 12%, while at one time they were saying it's going to be 3%. On March 9th, the OECD, a rich country think tank, upgraded the forecast for G20 group at 6.2% average. And in these countries, there's been 1%, 2%. Like, for example, in Canada, if we have 2%, we are very happy. But in India, they want 11%, 12%, 13%. So in China. So this shows that there's but certain uncertainty. Factors matter. A, how the accumulated poor pots of cash are distributed across the households, and whether the people treat this income as wealth. Take the distribution first. There's little doubt that in all rich countries, wealthier and the middle classes have accumulated most of the excess cash. These are the least likely to lose work, and a big share would be on holidays, restaurants, clothing, luxuries. Middle classes today are aping the high classes, so they will do the same. So a large chunk of the savings has the limited potential to spending bonanza. Yet the pro-rich skew in saving changes from country to country, from society to society, and that makes a difference. But one thing is sure, that the economy would bounce because of this factor, and possibly this is the second time in the history of the world that a disaster has generated economic growth. It was Second World War, which generated the growth, exponential growth, and now pandemic. The pro-rich section of society would say that this saving should be utilized for welfare schemes. But then the recipients of the welfare schemes are happy as they are because they are getting money without working. In many low income folks, you will see that at one time they considered themselves to be the dregs of society. Today they are aspiring to reach the middle classes. And if this situation continues, there will be two classes, the upper class and the middle class. There may be no lower class. And that would be because the welfare schemes have given them a cushion. So the poorest of the households may not be half as rich as the middle classes are, but they're quite nearing it. The worst of fifth in Britain, for example, they say they have saved less. because they have earned less. But then they forget that they have earned in other ways, that's by welfare and the penance. Now, the first stimulus was unusually generous. Most of the people received money. In India, it has been the other way around. Not everybody received money. In America, everybody received. But in India, it's only the lower classes receive. So the poorest people have made 40% more than they used to make. And that gives them an opportunity to A, go in for more luxuries and comforts, creature comforts, and secondly, to invest more on health and education of the children. And then that is strengthening the economy in the other way. Now imagine their savings, the bank balances today are 40% higher than of the richest for the same period because the richest didn't get the handouts. So they were getting what they were getting earlier. If you are getting $100 and all of a sudden you say $1,400, they increase, exponential increase. But if you're getting $1 million and you keep on getting $1 million, there's no increase. You might look still to be rich, but comparatively your riches have decreased. It's always a comparison. So there's a great uncertainty about the second factor. And the second factor was, would the household perceive their saving as wealth? Households are more likely to boost spending in response to an increase in income, not increase in wealth. The wealth increases, they don't boost the income. What they do is they build a base for increasing further, which is still better. So the households have built up their saving in different ways in different countries. That's true. In America, the system is different, and that's because of the cultural differences. So the monetary policies of the governments had to take into consideration that. For example, in Japan, excess savings are a result of higher income because of stimulus payouts, not spending cutbacks. Now, in Canada and in USA, they have been spending cutbacks, not in Japan, because they did not go into lockdown. These countries did. So their higher income is because of other factors. Naturally, the stimulus, excess saving can be reasonably interpreted as additional income over there, not in these countries. So America's recovery, Canada's recovery, India's recovery is going to be 50% faster than it was in the earlier times. As the pandemic wanes, it comes down when all the people are watching, the consumers are likely to spend. And that is something which is going to spur the increase in economy. However, if the people become parsimonious and they are afraid, they are fearful that something else might happen, let's keep the money safe. Then the economic recovery may not be around the corner. So it is now up to the government. See, they have sufficient capability to transform the fear they have generated the people into hope. The fear of one tragedy after another, one disaster after another, has to be replaced by hope that there is and light at the end of the tunnel. And that hope will make people spend. But if the people feel, as some conspiracy theorists would keep on keeping them in fear, some totalitarian authoritarian regimes will like to keep them in fear, then the recovery may not be of the level that you can expect. Otherwise, $3 trillion input can generate an additional income of at least $30 trillion. And as I said, the GDP average, OECD says 6%, but in countries like India, 11%, 12%, is not something to be sneezed at. So the, you have got to change the psychology of the people, make them feel, look here, if we came to your help, if we gave you the stimulus checks, if we gave you the welfare checks, at this time, you can be sure, depend on us, A, the tragedy would not be there. These things are cyclical in nature, they come and go. And in case it is still there, then we, the government is there for you, and we shall be ready with other stimuluses. So come, spend the money, invest it, do whatever, but don't keep a pile of cash in home or in the bank. Use it. Use it for your growth and economic growth. And this $3 trillion question, I'm amazed. It is engaging the attention of the economists, is engaging the attention of the social economy experts, but I'm yet to hear anything from the political leaders. They should, the imaginative, the innovative political leaders will catch this opportunity and ensure that this money is utilized for the real growth. And that's why in my two articles, I've written that the infrastructure development must take place, especially in countries like India and even in Canada, for example, because that is going to boost the economy manyfold. So $3 trillion, spend it, and how to spend it wisely. That's the $3 trillion question facing the world today. Thank you.